Well, thank you to Matrix Networks for hosting this incredible event, Tech Mixer 9. I'm GR Hereford, and we're here today to talk about IoT mobility. I'm joined by Chris Whitaker, VP of IoT Mobility, and Scott Glick, Senior Engineer at Teleris, one of the world's largest distributors of as-a-service technology in North America. Gentlemen, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
Hey, Chris, I know this is something you live in, this world is something you focus on every day. Tell us why mobility and IoT are important to every business.
Absolutely. You know, I find regardless of the size of business, from the small, medium business all the way up to enterprise, it's not too uncommon for them to neglect these two areas. You think every one of us is carrying around a smartphone or a tablet, right? And when you look at how much time an IT department spends managing, especially corporate-owned devices, 88% of IT professionals report taking at least 30 minutes or longer to troubleshoot and resolve mobile issues. So when you think about what IT's real purpose is to protect the network, keep the network up, and keep all the applications running. It's just not a really good use of IT department's time managing cell phones and tablets and scrubbing over cell phone data plans. So there are solutions that you can outsource that. They pay for themselves almost in every case, because not only do they take it off of IT, but they also optimize the billing. So when you have employees that are heavy power users versus employees that barely ever leave the office and use the landline or UCAS type solution, and you're paying the same for their plans, it just doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of options there in the mobility area. And then when you look at the Internet of Things, Kevin Ashton coined the phrase 21 years ago. So it's been around for a while, and originally was known as machine to machine. So mobility is really humans using cellular technology, talking to each other, and IoT, or the Internet of Things, really at its core is automating manual processes and letting the computers, devices do the work for us.
That's great, Chris. Yeah, I mean, I look around, you look around you today and you see, I mean, without realizing it, there's IoT everywhere, right? There's mobility devices being used everywhere. Can you tell us about a specific use case that you were involved in where somebody used, whether it's existing or new technology, to really impact their business?
Absolutely. And you nailed it. I get asked a lot about, Chris, I know what IoT means, but I don't really get it. I'm like, well, do you have an Apple Watch? Do you have a Ring camera? Do you have a Nest thermostat? And all these are examples of IoT devices. So when you look how that goes over to a business application, we had a customer that had a cement factory, and it'd been around for decades. And they went out a couple of years ago and got these sensors to manage how many bags are going through the zip tie machine, and how the pallets were being used, and how much product they were putting on each pallet. The problem was they didn't take the data they were collecting, and they really weren't optimized. They were just collecting all this meaningless data. So there are solutions out there that can go in and kind of retrofit assembly lines, manufacturing type industrial solutions, and not only optimize the solution, but capture the data and put it into a portal where it's now actionable data. You can actually do something with it. You can make decisions with it. A lot of business leaders are trying to budget for next year, and historically they're going off their gut feeling, or they're asking their employees to fill out Excel spreadsheets on what they think the metrics were. The beautiful thing about IoT is you take out that human element. It's real live data. You have real analytical information you can make decisions off of.
Great, Chris. Now, I want to dovetail into something that we start hearing a lot as a newer buzzword, smart cities. Tell us about what you know about smart cities and how that's kind of evolving out there.
Yeah, thank you. It's probably one of my most exciting and favorite topics. Growing up as a kid watching the Jetsons, I always wanted to live in that world. And I think we're slowly getting there with automated autonomous vehicles and whatnot. Just last month, we had a customer, it was a county government in North Carolina, had 14 intersections. They were just trying to manage, they had a problem with crime, drug trafficking, even human trafficking. And they had a very small law enforcement force. And they're right on the border with Virginia. And they're also right next to Interstate 95, which, the bad guys would commit a crime or steal something or whatever, and get on 95 and be out of the state before they could know what happened, right? So using a artificial intelligence type solution with these smart intersections, put cameras in all the intersections. And not only did it have license plate recognition, but it also recognized the color of the car and the make and model of the car. The system could detect, hey, one just went through this intersection over here on the east side of town. So it kind of helped law enforcement know which way to go to get them. It kind of reminds me of the old days. They say you can't outrun a radio because they could always radio ahead, but now you definitely can outrun artificial intelligence in that scenario. And then there's other scenarios around smart parking. A lot of cities and towns build parking decks in the downtown area. And one of the big complaints is you drive around, you can't find a parking spot. Well, obviously there's sensors now that can detect an empty spot and tell someone based on some type of leaderboard, hey, on the third level, there's 25 parking spots left. And that just gives a better citizen experience. Even around environmental concerns, wastewater treatment facilities, detecting certain chemical levels, looking at flood zone areas. If there's a flood warning issued, there's IoT sensors that can detect upstream, 20, 30, 100 miles away, if there's flood waters rising. So it kind of alerts the city to know maybe, hey, we got to close certain roads, or we need to go close that city park because it's down by the river and there's a flood threat there. So a lot of different solutions that smart cities are using, and it kind of goes on and on. I mean, there's even around protecting high schools, there's smart cameras that can detect if someone pulls out a pistol or a gun and automatically lock all the front doors on that side of the building. It's just one example of how technology is making even students safer.
That's great. So I want to close out with one last question. 5G, is it everything it's cracked up to be? What's myth? What's truth?
Short answer is yes, but the real answer is just not widely deployed. Yeah, it's in kind of your NFL cities, usually down by the stadium, literally. And there's 3 different types of 5G. Won't get into all that right now, but it's still going to take, just like 4G. It took a couple of years for 4G to be a reality. In fact, 4G's been around so long, most folks don't even know there was a 3G. So we're still looking at some time. The exciting part about 5G, I think, especially that millimeter wavelength, is that the sub 5 milliseconds of latency. I mean, most cellular 4G now is 90 to 120 milliseconds. And if you're talking about an autonomous vehicle, that extra 100 milliseconds make a big difference on hitting the brakes or swerving to miss a dog in the road or something. So it will be a big game changer in the coming years. For the next 6 to 12 months, still very spotty, not widely deployed, and this will take a little time.
Great, Chris. That was awesome. Love the conversation. GR, back to you.
Yeah, hey, thanks you guys. That was a nice quick little video there. Really appreciate your input and your knowledge on this subject. And thanks to all the Tech Mixer 9 attendees for being here. We hope you enjoyed this educational video. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to your Matrix Networks account executive who can help facilitate a deeper conversation.